If someone asked me to describe Mark Martin in 3 words, I'd have an easy answer. Intense. Intense and intense. It takes more than intensity to make a driver great. I'm here to tell you what else made Mark Martin the driver who won 50 Cup races in a Hall of Fame career. I'm here to tell you some things you did not know about why Mark Martin ranks among the all-time greats, even though he never won a Cup title. Martin wasn't the most social person at the racetrack. He didn't want to be. Let 2-time Cup champion Joey Logano describe him.
He wasn't there to screw around. He wasn't there to have fun. He was there to win and get better. I think that's what drove Mark's success.
Go to Martin's Ford dealership in his hometown of Batesville, Arkansas, and you can step into a museum honoring Martin's racing career. There's a typical cars, trophies, news articles. But look closely and you'll see some journals, where Martin logged race by race his performance, as well as notes about shocks, springs, and other details of how he set up the car to go fast. Martin probably doesn't need to look at the journals to know what he ran at a certain track. He was an encyclopedia of that type of knowledge.
His knowledge of a race car and his work ethic is what catapulted him to the next level. When he showed up on the scene in Cup, he was a step ahead of the game. I mean, they were literally, looking to him as some new innovative ways to go about a chassis change or a spring change, the combinations that he ran.
Just how much did he know? Larry McReynolds was his crew chief very early in his Cup career, and McReynolds maybe didn't even have the credentials to work as a Cup crew chief, as he had spent less than 2 years in the sport.
I told them, I don't know why you would want me to be the crew chief. And Mark's mom said, Larry, Mark's gonna make the calls on his car. He just needs somebody to make sure what he wants done gets executed. And that was absolutely the case. Whether it was at the shop, whether it was during practice, even adjustments during the race. Mark Martin knew his race car from front bumper to rear bumper, from roof to floor pan and everything in between.
So how come Martin knew so much? I caught up with him at the NASCAR Hall of Fame earlier this year. He said going up against short track greats like Larry Phillips and Dick Trickle in the Midwest taught him what he needed to do to win races.
The only way I could beat them was make my car better than them. I did my own setups, I did my own tires, my own stagger, chose the compounds and did it all. And the only way I was going to get a win was to make my stuff better than those guys. I stole a win here and there, and that served me well when I had to go up against Dale Earnhardt. Just think about it. I stepped into NASCAR, I had to go against Dale Earnhardt. And if I wanted to win, I had to make my car better than his in order to do it, because I dang sure wasn't going to outdrive him.
Some would say that Martin downplays his talent. Jamie McMurray, Martin's teammate at Roush Racing, disputes the "oh, I wasn't that talented" storyline.
And I always kind of laugh at Mark because he would always downplay his own ability and say, well, my car was better than I was today. And I think we all know that that's not the case. He put a lot of average cars, average engines at times throughout his career on his back and was able to get incredible finishes. I mean, it just seemed like every team that he went to, gosh, he was just always so strong, and a lot of that was just from his ability and I think his work ethic.
McMurray noted that Martin, at 5'6", isn't a big guy, but everyone knew Martin as one of the strongest. He hit the gym to stay in shape. On the speakers to motivate him, he wanted rap music with Gucci Mane as his favorite. The drivers also respected Martin because of his story. He came to Cup in 1982, and early in the 1983 season, he found himself without a ride. He wouldn't return to the sport's top level on a full-time basis for 5 years when Jack Roush hired him to race in Cup. And the rest is history. He spent the next 19 years at Roush. He declared 2005 as his last season and then returned for 1 more year at Roush and overall another 8 years running a part-time schedule for Dale Earnhardt Inc. before going full-time again for 3 years at Hendrick Motorsports starting in 2009 and then doing another part-time schedule for Michael Waltrip Racing. He took home 13 checkered flags and 5 titles in the International Race of Champions, an all-star competition that brought in the best from various forms of motorsports. He won Cup races over a span of more than 20 years, with his first win in 1989 and his final Cup victory in 2009.
His passion, the emotion he has, his grit. Mark was, not a big guy, but man, his determination was as much or more than anyone that I've ever been around.
Here's the evidence. He needed 113 starts to win his first Cup race. He needed major chassis adjustments to win at the tough North Wilkesboro Speedway in 1990. He won 4 consecutive races in 1993, and he captured 2 Southern 500s, considered one of the most grueling races on the circuit. All along, he often set the example that other drivers wanted to emulate. He felt that driver code would include respect.
Mark is probably the most all-around respected driver that we have, that I've ever been around in our sport. And that comes from just the way that he conducted himself, the way that he drove on the racetrack, and really sticking to his guns. He was not going to run you over. He expected the same race ethics that he believed in on the racetrack to come from you, or he was going to come tell you about it.
Sure, there were some disappointments in Martin's career. A penalty for an intake manifold issue left him 26 points short of the title in 1990. He came close in the Daytona 500. Just how close, he lost the 2007 Daytona 500 by just 0.02 seconds to Kevin Harvick. And so he never won the sport's biggest race. When many thought he had passed his prime, he snagged 5 wins in his first season at Hendrick, but then he didn't win the next 2 years. He still had that intensity by the time he came to Hendrick, but it was a different Mark Martin. A couple of years prior, when he started racing part-time, he seemed much happier, more jovial. He didn't have the stress of trying to race for points. He could be intense, but didn't have to be intense for 38 weeks a year.
Mark was just intense. You know, in everything he did, it was just total vision and total concentration and focus. And what a wonderful storybook career he had. I remember back in the mid-70s when he showed up at Nashville with his number 02 Apache Stove Buick. That was really cool. I think he sat on the pole the first time he came to NASCAR, and he brought that mentality from his short track days and he made it work.
Part of Martin's vision included helping that driver we heard from at the start of this piece. Martin had publicly said that Logano was the driver he wanted to replace him at Roush. Now that didn't happen, but that endorsement vaulted the young teenager's career.
At the time, I definitely could not do what he was expecting me to do, but it was nice over time that it worked out. And honestly, my career is not where it is today. There might be no championships, no race wins at all for Joey Logano if it's not for Mark Martin. Mark is the one that really set me on the map. He's the one that made teams aware of my name and gave me the opportunity, and that was really the difference maker.
Fans are now more aware of Logano, and Mark Martin, they know him well too. Martin wants the fans to remember that it didn't come easy. He had 2 poles, 2 top 10s, 1 top 5, and had led 76 laps in his first 5 races. He went into the next season on a high, only to see a sponsor never pay up the following year. At the time he got fired from that ride during his second full-time season, he thought his time racing in the biggest events down south might be over.
It's important to recognize that I got to NASCAR at a real young age, had a lot of promise and failed, tripped and failed in my career, and had to go back and start all over again, late model racing again. Most people just think that I came to NASCAR and started racing and started winning races, and it wasn't that way.
And Martin probably wouldn't have had it any other way.
It was a long, hard journey, and without the lessons that I learned from the failure that I had in 1982 and 83 and getting fired in 83 after 7 races, I wouldn't have been the person and the driver that I was when I came back in 88.
He sees the checkered flag ahead in the hands of Harold Kinder. He receives the checkered flag. Mark Martin wins.
Mark, it's been a long time coming, but congratulations, partner.
Well, thanks, Jerry. Driving up here into victory lane, you know, I just felt like my whole life was fulfilled.
Hey race fans, thanks for watching our video. For all NASCAR on Fox News, content, and the best clips from Fox Sports, be sure to follow and subscribe to our channel.